Good morning. Welcome to all. If there is any space in your pew, I encourage you to scoot out and let these folks in. It's going to be a packed house today, and doesn't that feel good? Welcome to First Unitarian Church. Come on in. Welcome to our visitors. If this is your first time visiting, we are so excited that you're here, and you picked a great day to be here. We invite you to stay after service for coffee, conversation. We'll also have coffee online for just a couple of minutes after our service today. Let's get started with just a few announcements. First of all, I want to welcome back to the pulpit Beck Miller, who is our lay minister today. Can't wait for y'all to hear what he's prepared. Next Sunday, May 7th, we will have a budget Q&A right here in this room starting after the 9 o'clock service. So in between the services, you can come back and hear about next year's budget and get your questions answered before we vote on it on May 21st at our annual meeting. Or you can just come and marvel at what a thing of beauty it is. It's an amazing budget, y'all. You're going to be really impressed. Reverend Ian and our finance team have worked so hard and have produced a really solid budget. We're very proud of it. So next Sunday, 10-ish, you can come right here and get your questions answered. Then on Thursday next week, join your endowment committee for an estate planning presentation in Elliott Hall, 7 o'clock. That's Thursday, May 11th. The presentation will be provided by First Unitarian Church board member Rick Langer, who is an estate attorney. You can come learn how we can each ensure our families are cared for and our values are honored when we die. Learn simple steps for including charitable organizations like yours truly in your estate plan. And please RSVP so we'll know how many folks to prepare refreshments for. And you can find that information in your Torch email or on our website. Well, tomorrow, as they say, it's gonna be May. And that means that it's going to be Pride pretty soon, and we need lots of volunteers. So we need folks to staff our table at the festival, folks who can help us carry the giant Pride flag at the end of the parade on Sunday, and of course, folks who can help us with the important administrative tasks, planning, setup, breakdown, all that stuff. There's a sign-up form in this week's Torch email, and I encourage you to fill it out like today, because we've got a lot of stuff to do in a very little time. So if you're interested in volunteering at Pride, now's your moment. Now, today's the day. It's the day when our members will vote on our new senior minister. It's taking place in this room and on Zoom at 12:30. I'm going to give you specific instructions after the service because if you're like me, you will not remember it for an hour, right? So hang in for that. But just know for now that this is the place, 12:30 is the time. And on that note, I'd like to invite our candidate, Reverend J, to come and light the chalice to begin our worship.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Today, I light the chalice that marks our time together in gratitude for the many of you that I have had the privilege of getting to know just a little bit this week. Change, even when positive, is never easy. The wisdom of fire reminds us of the constant flux of life. New relationships often take some time to catch light. May we let these new connections burn in their own pattern, in their own time, in their own way. I invite you to rise in body or spirit for our first hymn. It is number 347 in the gray hymnal, Gather the Spirit.
Spirit.
Because I grew up Mormon and practiced that faith well into my 30s, I've had lots of opportunities to speak in front of a religious audience over the course of my life. From a very early age, they would ask us to practice speaking in primary in front of kids who were 11 and under, reciting very short talks, usually written in part, if not entirely, by our parents. I can also remember asking my mom to help me give my testimony in front of God and everyone at church during our once-a-month fast and testimony meeting. I would get up, sit and stand pews in whatever LDS chapel we were attending at the time, usually with my mother walking with me, wait for my turn, and then when it was time, they would lower the pulpit, because most LDS pulpits move, and finally I would recite whatever words my mother would feed into my ear. The script was writ short and sweet. I like to bear my testimony that I know this church is true. I love my mom and dad. I know Joseph Smith was a true prophet. I know the gospel will help my family live forever in the celestial kingdom. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Some of you may be familiar. I bring this training up not to discuss LDS dogma and indoctrination. That is a much longer conversation for another time. But to point out that up until this beautiful lay ministry experience, I have never come to a pulpit of any variety where my main objective was not to either repeat religious doctrine or, full shameful disclosure, to just enjoy the sound of my own voice coming from the microphone before an audience who can't or won't leave because of social or religious pressure. You can't escape me. My experience as a lay minister to this congregation has been the complete opposite to the ones from my childhood. Not only because I am no longer coming to the pulpit with all the religious answers, I don't know them anymore, I'm not sure if I ever did, but also because I've had to speak from a position that is a lot more vulnerable. Twice a month, me and the other 3 lay ministers, RC, Kristen, and Nancy, as well as Reverend Ian, have gotten together to discuss sometimes weird, sometimes egg-heady theological essays. Then I go home and spend a few hours in front of a computer or in private meditation, truly pondering on what I could say from this pulpit that would be authentic, valuable, or meaningful. And after that process, I stand before you as my community and ask you to really look at me and see me as I am. It's not always been a comfortable experience discussing in detail my struggles with mental health, or to be honest about my familial history with child abuse, or to discuss how hard it is to be a foster dad. It is so hard. Or, most importantly, I've related my experiences growing up as a closeted trans man in Mormon society. Nevertheless, it is also from this pulpit I've begged for calls to action and empathy for people who are like me. I've challenged you to see the injustice to the trans and queer communities here in Salt Lake Valley, and I've been overwhelmed by your support, and I've been sustained by your kindness. My efforts in the lay ministry have been a gift on so many levels. A gift to me because I've been able to examine my life and to put into words some of the lessons I've learned. I also hope it's been a gift to the congregation because it has allowed you to see specifics about my life. It is a paradoxical arrangement where the more specific and personal I've gotten about myself, the more universal my experience has become. We are all of us experiencing what it means to be human, and more importantly, what it means to make and sustain connection. That journey as a lay minister comes to an end for me today. It's only a year-long process, and this is my last chance. And I'm a little heartbroken that I've reached its conclusion. Nevertheless, I am also hopeful because I have been able to share and connect in an incredibly powerful way. It has been a gift to both me as a speaker, and I very much hope it has been a gift to you as my audience and fellow congregants. May that valuable connection continue beyond this brief ministry. Amen.
We are going. Heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know Where are you going? How will you get there? I think back on all the times I found myself on the cusp of something really new. Leaving home, graduating from college, getting married, being pregnant, changing careers, going to grad school, finishing grad school, standing in this pulpit for the very first time. There were plenty of other moments, too, when I knew that something had just changed and nothing would ever be the same. The first Sunday that I sloughed off from the church that I grew up in, the day my kiddo took his first steps, the day I heard him call himself he for the first time, the first time I looked in the mirror and saw a gray hair sprouting up. I swear it was the same day as that positive pregnancy test. True story, true story. Each time I get a notification from my health provider saying I'm now old enough for this screening or that. Think back on those moments in your life. The big moments, the milestones, the things that will make it into your biography or your obituary. The small moments, the moments perhaps known to you alone that turned out to be just as pivotal. There are moments that we can prepare for and moments that we can't. And only one thing of which we can be certain: things are going to change. Don't like the weather? Come back tomorrow. Heaven knows where we are going, nor how we will get there, but we know we will. What I do know is that the person to the left of me and the person to the right of me are my companions for the journey, whoever they turn out to be. Take a look right now. Yeah. See their faces. These are your companions. This is your traveling party. Whatever they've brought with them, their joy, their pain, their experience, their uncertainty, that's your kit. And your stuff is their equipment. That's how we do this hike through life. We go together, and sometimes we carry each other. As we proceed with our work today, I want you to recognize this moment for the turning point that it is. Approach it with wonder. We don't have to have it all figured out today. We don't have to know exactly where we are going today. We do have to trust that the people we are going with are good and trustworthy companions, and that we will get where we're going together. And the trust we start to build today will help us to lift our eyes from the road once in a while and see what a lovely journey it is we are taking together. Amen.
Dream.
Thank you, choir. We are dreamers, aren't we? Yes, we are a community of dreamers, but we're not content to just dream. We want to make our dreams come real, and right now is a great opportunity for you to do that. As the offering baskets come around, I invite you to give generously. You may use the QR code on the piece of paper in the seat in front of you. Put a dream in the basket while it comes around, because we are ready to make them come true. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Salt Lake City. Last week, we celebrated Earth Day, if you were here. And so I preached about Great Salt Lake. And I also told you that that is not traditional on these candidating weeks. So I preached twice. Usually the first one, which was last week, that would be a sermon introducing me, about me, my origin story, and what have you. And then the second one, the one today, would be my vision for this church. So since I decided to preach last week about the Salt Lake, I promised today to try to combine both my origin story and my vision for our future together. So you get 2 sermons for the price of 1 today. Hopefully it won't go too long. It won't. I was raised in Indiana, a Christmas Easter Catholic, explains the collar, without much emphasis on religion. So I guess you'd call it like secular or cultural Catholic. What that means is I didn't know much about Jesus, but I was very well versed in guilt and shame. This shame was exacerbated by the fact that from the time I was in grade school, I was seen as weird. That's what the other kids and sometimes even the teachers called me. It hurt at times, but it also seemed right somehow. I couldn't put my finger on it. There seemed to be something fundamentally different about me that even I couldn't figure out. I grew up feeling isolated most of the time. Eventually, I and those around me would find different language to label this feeling. The word weird shifted to queer. I probably don't have to tell you, but it was not easy to be queer in Reagan and Bush-loving Indiana in the 80s and 90s. For those of you younger than me, Reagan and Bush were presidents in the 20th century. And they were very conservative. Despite all of this isolation and despair, I felt a connection to what I sometimes call the divine mystery and what I sometimes just call the mystery for brevity's sake. It was hard to articulate at the time, and if I'm honest, maybe impossible to articulate now, but I experienced a deep awareness of the connectedness of all things and was overcome by the weight and lightness of that connectedness. In my most difficult moments, it imbued me with a profound sense of comfort and hope, even when the world seemed bleakest. I did not have the language at that time to call myself what I call myself now, a mystical agnostic. one who believes there is more in the universe than we can possibly know, but tries on my best days to trust that mysterious feeling of connection and universal poetry. Despite the dominant Christian narrative at the time in my area in the Midwest, my experience of the divine and the sacred never made me feel ashamed. Quite the opposite. The mystery that I experienced always told me that I was loved, that I was connected. If church groups around me told me that someone like me was an abomination or going against God for loving a certain way or slipping between genders, I actually found it kind of baffling. They couldn't be talking about the God that was my mystery. After college, I did what many queer Midwestern kids do. I fled the red Midwest for the blue, blue coast, Massachusetts. The most liberal state in the country, the gay, progressive home of Unitarian Universalism, which I had discovered a few years earlier, by the way. In Boston, I was able to fly my freak flag, as they used to say in the 60s. I vowed I would never return to an oppressive red state. You're getting ahead of me. In my young adulthood in Boston, I chased the divine mystery in various forms. Through publishing and performing poetry, I learned to try to express the inexpressible through language. From my days as a yoga teacher, I learned to experience the mystery in the weight of the physical body and the ephemera of the breath. From writing musicals and producing theater, I learned, to quote Oscar Wilde, the most immediate way in which a human being can share with another the sense of what it is to be a human being. Finally, I decided to stop only flirting with the idea of a life dedicated to the mystery. I bit the biscuit and applied to Harvard Divinity School to become a UU minister. Then, right as I was graduating, a pandemic hit. My ordination was delayed because of COVID, and so my employment options were extremely limited. But we had a baby on the way, my wife and I knew I needed to support him. The best option available to me, it seemed, was in the far suburbs of Houston, Texas. One of those red states that I had vowed never to return to. I was 38 years old with a newborn and a postpartum wife when I pulled into Texas for the first time to serve as an interim senior minister. Now, many of my friends in Boston thought it was a wild decision for this non-binary queer with a same-sex partner and child to move to Texas. After all, Texas was full of the enemy. Evangelicals, Baptists, right-wingers. But it was survival, right? I took the job. Sue, my wife, and our son Lucien went on a plane, but we had a dog that was just a little too big to fit under the seat, so I drove with our geriatric dachshund Coco from Boston to Houston. It took 3 days. I finally pulled into the driveway of the house that we had rented off of a picture from the internet and stepped out of my car. The first people who greeted me were the next-door neighbors, Curtis and Christy. I told them I was a minister, and they lit up and told me what church they went to. I froze when I realized I had moved in next to evangelicals. Texas evangelicals. I was so scared that they would hate us just for being queer. A year later, we were over at Curtis and Christie's house drinking, as we had done many times by then. Suddenly, and it was probably the whiskey, but Christie blurted out, "When you moved in, we were so scared that you would hate us because we're Christian." I'm going to come back to Curtis and Christie. I don't want to sugarcoat my time in Texas. I don't want to overlook that there has been harmful legislation proposed and even passed while I've been there. I and my colleagues and congregants have resisted, spoken out against, and protested legislation that would harm the environment, women and pregnant people, trans and queer people, voting rights, and diverse books in libraries. These legislations represent some of the attitudes I had fled to Boston to avoid as a young person. But it was in Texas that I realized, or maybe remembered, why I had become a minister. I wanted to create the space that I didn't have as a weird queer kid in dark red Indiana, who believed in some ineffable connection that was greater than all of us as individuals, and who believed that all of us are worthy of love. And I wanted to do it in a place where I wouldn't just be preaching to the Blue Bubble choir. And it was my evangelical neighbors who reminded me that sometimes, by all means not always, but sometimes, when you reach across what you think are hard and fast divisions, you are rewarded beyond belief. From the beginning, they gifted us the kind of welcome I associate with days of yore. Black and white movies, Bible stories, the good ones, the nice ones. They would offer me and my wife and our son help without knowing a thing about us. They would drive us to the airport, take in packages, fix our fence. Their daughter was our first babysitter. We had no one in the area. This was life-saving for us. Their kindness and generosity made our time in Texas feel more comfortable and joyful than we thought it could be. And in turn, it gave us the space and gratitude to be kinder and more generous to others. We never got into discussions about dogma, but they showed me their beliefs in their actions, in the way their happiness seemed to be bound up with the happiness of their neighbors. If I had shut them out preemptively, we would have missed out on a beautiful relationship with people very, very different from us. So now we are planning to move from red Texas to red Utah. And a few people have asked me why. Well, frankly, Salt Lake City, there is a lot to love about your church. Your thoughtfulness, your environmental activism, your dedication to religious education, the fact that you housed a family in sanctuary for over 3 years, the fact that you've come together to make not one but 2 hilarious music videos that have brought delight and sometimes vexation to thousands. The fact that this historic church has hosted musical and artistic events that have brought joy and connection to people in the city beyond its usual circle. This was just the type of church I wanted to serve. Passionate, energetic, creative, and strong, in a place where it really matters. I will admit, I did have a moment of doubt this week. It didn't have to do with you. It had to do with people telling me that this place can be very lonely for people who are not members of the LDS Church. They told me that unless I lived in the progressive, read very, very expensive areas of downtown, I might find myself isolated. I was right back to being that lonely kid in Indiana. We had lucked out with our evangelical neighbors in Houston, but evangelicals are not Mormons, and besides, lightning doesn't often strike twice. Could we luck out like that again? So I spent my one free afternoon this week driving around, trying to imagine living here. I made it all the way out into the deep suburbs when I saw a faded queer pride flag hanging from a window. I knocked on the door, and a woman about my age answered. She was wearing the mom uniform of yoga pants and a long-sleeved t-shirt. She was straight, but she told me that she kept the flag out in solidarity. She had left the LDS Church a few years before because, among other reasons, she loved her gay friends. We talked on her porch for 40 minutes. She connected me with two of her queer friends who have offered to help us through the process of finding our place here. They've even extended a dinner invitation for when we arrive. It was another reminder that there is kindness and connection in the world. We just need to trust that we will find it. I believe the most important work in this country is happening in places like Salt Lake City. Not in red or blue echo chambers, and definitely not on social media, but physical places where people with vastly different worldviews must somehow figure out how to dance with one another. Issues like climate change are too big for us to pick and choose who we work with to stop them. Working to end racism and queerphobia is too important to get caught up in the false god of demonizing our enemies. Besides, I want to give young people in Utah what I never had growing up in Indiana in the 90s. I did not know there was a spiritual or religious home for people like me until I was in college. And I don't just mean queer people, I mean anyone who dares to question, who dares to follow what they know inside to be true despite what messages they may be bombarded with. There is kindness and connection in the world. We just need to trust that we will find it. And if we can't find it, we can create it. For the last half century or so, many have felt that Unitarian Universalism has been primarily defined by what it is against. It is against dogma, against conservatism, against the religion of our parents, against the religion of our neighbors who we don't particularly like. But my friends, there are too many religious groups out there today who stand primarily for what they are against, who stand primarily against what they hate, instead of for what they love. I do not want that to be us. I want us to stand for something. I want us to stand for love, for interdependence, for equity, for transformation, for pluralism, for generosity, for justice. And I do not want us to fall for the lies of either or. You're either with me or against me. You're either good or evil. I believe we can be a house of and also. I see a future for us in which we value and acknowledge the things that make us unique, our racial and ethnic identities, our genders, our sexual and romantic orientations, our neurodiversity, our ability diversity, our ages, our opinions, and also celebrate what connects us all as human beings. I see a future for us that honors our cherished elders and also inspires young adults and also nurtures our children. I see a future where we can follow the Shoshone leaders who are working to save the Salt Lake and also become naturalized to this place ourselves. So even those of us descended from settlers may view the land as a precious gift to be cherished and protected. I see a future in which we can hold one another accountable for hurtful behavior and also recognize that we are all imperfect humans on imperfect journeys, making mistakes and beautiful accidents as we struggle our way toward wholeness and love. I see a future inside these walls and beyond in which the humanist, the Christian, and the Jew is welcome. The Buddhist, the Muslim, and the Hindu is welcome. The deconstructed, the deconstructing, and the reconstructing is welcome. The ex-Mormon who wants nothing to do with their faith of origin. The ex-Mormon who wants to hold on to some of that identity. The Mormon who still calls themselves a Mormon, but maybe has some questions. All of them are welcome. And you, whatever you are, whatever I forgot to say, you are welcome. Enough of shutting people out. May we open these doors wide. May we remember that there is kindness and connection in the world, and may we trust that we will find it. May we trust that we can help create it. Salt Lake City, I hope we can do this work together. I think we can. Thank you, and blessed be. Thank you. You actually could have stayed standing. Sorry. Thank you. That was so nice. Please rise and body your spirit. For hymn number 354, We Laugh, We Cry. It's in the gray hymnal. May we stand for and not merely against. May we be and also rather than either or. May we remember that there is kindness and connection in the world, and may we do the work to help create it. May we open our doors wide enough so that everyone out there who has been hurt or persecuted or abandoned by those who are supposed to love them may enter and join us in joyous song. May we see it, may we be it, may we do it. Amen.
Amen.
Choir, thank you again for such beautiful music today. You've really lifted us. Thanks to Reverend Jay. Thank you to yes. Yeah. Thank you to Tristan, and thanks to all of our volunteers. Today's a volunteer-heavy day, so thank you to everyone who's making it happen. Now, I have some instructions for you. We are going to begin our voting process at 12:30 right here in this room or in Elliott Hall on Zoom. Dot, our board president, has asked that the first thing you do when you leave here is go and get your ballot if you're eligible. Do that first because it's going to take a while to check everyone's eligibility, so we want to get that process rolling as quickly as we can. Please stay for coffee. If you're not eligible to vote, you're still welcome to stay and observe and watch how our faith does things. It's a wonderful thing to be part of. We are allowing voting on Zoom. Tristan and our treasurer, Starlin Chaston, are handling that process, and they're going to do a great job. Here's what we ask. If you are here in this church, either in this room or on Zoom or in Elliott Hall, please don't access the Zoom feed. It makes our microphones go wacky. I don't know how that works, but it does, so just stay off the Zoom. If you're at home, obviously, that's your spot. We are going to have childcare during the vote, just like last week. If your kids are in religious education right now, please go get your ballot, sign your kids out of RE, and sign them back into childcare so that we can get a good head count and we know where everybody's kids are. And finally, the results of the vote are going to be announced today. The first person to know is this person behind me. Y'all don't know first, they know first. After they find out, then we find out, okay? So you're welcome to stay for the reading of the results, or you can go home and check your email if you're in a hurry. It's up to you. But we will announce it today. So for now, please go get your ballot, take care of your kids, have a cup of coffee. Don't bring your coffee back in here. It's no. And then at 12:30, we'll get underway. Thank you.